Again, he was here a pretty long time. And again, his ministry had a particular tone. And then there's me, and I've been here a pretty long time. And during this time, my ministry's had a particular tone. One isn't better than the other. In fact, I'm not sure we even know what it is when it begins. But the point is, God builds by working in a congregation with pastors. I think now as Pastor Rod will be here, and he'll be here preaching next week, I'm glad he's the new pastor. I've met him, talked with him. You should be excited about him coming. If I were staying here, I'd be excited about him coming. I think he brings some real good stuff to the table. Probably the best thing is who he is. So, I give you permission, get excited about Pastor Rod coming. On 1, 2, 3, we're all going to say, all right. 1, 2, 3, all right. Good. You see, if you had a different intro, it'd be different. You'd have forgotten about me already. And it's a lot easier to celebrate when you forget about me. But it's all right. It's all right. It's exciting. I think the Lord helped me get to real peace about this over a period of time. And actually, one way the Lord helped me see it, and I'm not sure if it helped. When I was on sabbatical, I knew I'd be gone. I knew it before a purpose. I had no problem leaving. I didn't worry about you while I was gone. What I'm finding now is, this time it's like you're going on a sabbatical. Because you as a congregation with your new pastor are in a period where you're going to be establishing ministry. It is one of the most important times in a church's history. So I'm not going to be around much for a while. Not because I don't like it, not because I feel rejected. But I don't want in any way for you to be distracted from really connecting with Pastor Rod. The way you connect with him in these first few months is really important. I think you're going to find this real easy to do. And don't feel bad for me. I have friends. Yeah, I have friends who are pastors. I have some friends who aren't. But I'm going to be okay. In fact, I'm pumped. I know this is a new chapter for you and for me. I would ask, when you think to pray for me, and don't do it during the worship service, but when you think about it late at night, just ask God to help me and provide for me places I can preach and teach. I've been doing it a long time. I've been doing it now for over 40 years. And people say you look too young. Well, up until a few years ago, I did look too young. But I really aged a lot now, it's true. But I want to say one more thing about what you bring to the table. This is the best place I've ever preached. They've all been good. Oh boy, I enjoyed them all. But I figured out what it is you bring. You pray for me, and you pray for you to listen. In this congregation, preaching is a combined effort. It's not just me trying to move you. It's not just you trying to move me. It's us trusting God to work through us. I think I've seen the miracle of preaching more here than any place else I've been. I thank you for that. And you're that way. And keep that way. And I think Pastor Rod would be so grateful for that. He and his wife and Jonathan, I don't recall their daughter who's off at college, but they're a family coming in. They're a good family. Obviously, Jonathan's a twins family. He has the most expensive Joe Mauer shirt I have ever seen. That thing had to be $90 at least. It's beautiful. It even has that official emblem. That means it was for so many years, and then we used to start at Thanksgiving. I'd be preaching like 5 sermons before Christmas. And one Sunday I got up and said, I've covered every character in the story except the donkey, and here goes. And I decided I'm not going for the donkey today. So we're going back to complete the thoughts where we left off a few weeks ago in John 15. And it's a special passage. It's very connected to what we have. It's very connected to what you've seen in Sunday school and Sunday nights, and the women have been seeing their study. The title I thought of is, This Isn't as Easy as I Thought It Would Be. And this passage comes after Jesus commanded his disciples, including us, to love each other, a command. And he said it over and over. For us to love each other, and I'll say up front, I'm not trying to leave you with a challenge so much as I encourage you. You're a loving congregation. But you know what? Kind of like a marriage. Don't take that love for granted. Work at it. Work at it. You see, the love in a church is important for at least 2 reasons. One is, since Jesus went back to the Father, we're the only Christ the people see. If we don't love each other, they get a distorted view of Jesus and of the Father. But if we love each other like Christ, they see something special. But there's another factor, and it's this. This is a tough world to live in. What makes it so tough is we don't even always notice it. But this is a tough world to live in. And we need the love and support that comes in a healthy church. And I believe you guys are functioning that way. And you know what I found so interesting? I wouldn't have been here nearly so long if you hadn't chosen to work together and to love each other through retooling and following on. You building ministry as God led. You weren't depending on me then. I was doing stuff I could, but I couldn't do a lot. You've already proven with God's grace you can work together and do special things. And when you have a guy who's younger, more energy, and got a different thought process, it's exciting to think about what comes. But why do we need loving each other? And what is it that makes this world so tough for us to live in? Well, Jesus had to deal with the disciples because the more they learned about who he was, the more excited they got about following him. But in what he said in our passage today, he kind of burst their bubble. He broke right through to say, yes, you're going to enjoy following me, but I'm going to tell you it's not all going to be roses. And I'm going to tell you that right up front. So, he talked about the hardships that were coming to bring them down to reality. We need to be brought down to reality sometimes. This is not a hatred that the world has for him. Wow. That means it's not about us. The world doesn't believe in Jesus. There are believers, but the world as a whole does not. So we are always vulnerable to criticism. And I think we'll all agree, we don't like to be disliked. Jesus reminded us that he is the point of the confrontation. Make sure we keep it that way. Don't present Christ in, some people can present Christ and by the time they're done, I'm not sure I would believe. If we make that the issue, we're wrong. Keep the gospel simple and write about Jesus. Because he's the point of confrontation. Don't make it you. Okay, what else? If you belong to the world, it would love you as its own. As it is, you do not belong to the world, but I have chosen you out of the world. That's why the world hates you. You know, part of the opposition comes because Jesus has called us out of the world. And he's chosen us out of the world. We don't belong to the world. So our identity and our calling as Christians sets us at odds with the world around us. If we live just like the world, and we're part of the world system instead of following Jesus, we'd probably get along pretty well. But Jesus has chosen us for a different purpose. He's called us to be his disciples and to live as citizens of heaven, not of the world. So, yeah, it's working. He went on. Remember what I told you, a servant is not greater than his master. If they persecute me, they'll persecute you also. If they obey my teaching, they'll obey yours also. We're not greater than Jesus, so we shouldn't expect to be treated better. But while Jesus was talking about how difficult it is, in this verse he gave us some real hope. Because there are also people who are ready to enter the kingdom. See, there are many who are totally rejecting, but there's always some who are ready to enter the kingdom. And Christians are the ones who have the privilege of helping do that. So, think about it this way. If we let the rejection keep us from sharing the gospel, we're not going to be connecting with some people who are ready to trust Christ. Don't let the opposition keep you from doing what's right. Oh, and I hate opposition. Unless I'm in an ornery mood. And that's really not Christ-like either. So, they will treat you this way because of my name, for they do not know the one who sent me. Ungodliness means people don't know or understand who God is. And they don't know him or the Father who sent him. And then that negative reaction, again, bounces back to us. So we can expect opposition. We can do it all as graciously, softly, as a pediatrician. But the opposition will still be there. Because Christ is the point of confrontation. Then Jesus went on to say, the people who are rejecting him and who are opposing us don't have any excuses. He says here, 22-23, if I had not come and spoken to them, they would not be guilty of sin. But now they have no excuse for their sin. Whoever hates me hates my Father as well. People have no excuse for hating Jesus and the Father and his people. And there are two reasons. One is that Jesus has come and showed people who God is. I have found that so refreshing since I figured it out. When I read the Gospels, I'm reading God. When I see how Jesus treated a prostitute, that's God treating that prostitute. When I see him fighting with the Pharisees, that's God fighting with the Pharisees. See, Jesus shows us God because he is God in the flesh. And because of that, people have no excuse. Because the Father has chosen to reveal himself through the Son. To announce the kingdom and to announce Jesus as Son. Well, what goes on here? People reject that. And he says they're without excuse because God has acted intentionally to show them. Then he goes for the second reason. If I had not done among them the works no one else did, they would not be guilty of sin. As it is, they have seen, and yet they have hated both me and my Father. Notice how he puts how they respond to Jesus, how they respond to the Father, and it bounces back to how they respond to us. How people respond to Jesus is the key. We know people will talk about God till we're blue in the face. But bring in Jesus. You know, you can even talk about God at school. But bring in Jesus. Boing! That's where the confrontation comes. So what Jesus is saying here is, he demonstrated who God is and what God is like by the things he did. He did miracles, he was compassionate, and he lived a perfect life. Jesus showed people who God is. Many people recognize that Jesus taught and acted with authority nobody else had. When people reject Jesus, they're also rejecting the Father who sent him. And again, that splashes over to anybody bringing them the gospel. And then finally, but this isn't fulfilled what is written in their law. They hated me without reason. That prophecy was made hundreds of years earlier. They hated me without reason. It was prophesied long ago that when the Messiah came, the opposition would come. But what's interesting is, it wasn't because of him. The evil is in the people's hearts. They have no reason to hate Jesus, but they hate him without reason. And God said that hundreds of years earlier. That's how it happens. If you hate someone without reason, that means there's nothing in that person to cause you to hate them. It means the hatred's in you, and it's got to come out somewhere. Okay? So, don't be surprised. We run into some opposition. There's a war going on between God and the world, between God and Satan. And as we're following grace, we get drawn into it. And that's why it's not as easy as I thought it would be. One of the things, they said, I respect you for hanging in there so long. I respect you for hanging in there so long. How many of you have never been disappointed in a church? I thought so. You see, there's some difficulties following Jesus, but he warns us they're there. And if we work at loving each other in his grace, we are a healthy place to be refreshed, and we're a beacon to the people around us. So when we think about the rest of following Jesus, it's normal to run into opposition. And it'll vary. We hear from Dr. Pat about people who are being killed, having unspeakable things done to themselves. Here, it's more likely to be about how our neighbors look at us, or how our family looks at us, or pressure at the job or in school. But it's not quite like they're taking us out and killing us, at least not yet. Like me. Took me a while to figure out, I thought it was a fluke when someone did it. Well, it doesn't go that way. We can bend over backwards so far we don't even share the gospel. And that hurts the people. And it thwarts God's work. Don't spend so much effort trying to make the world like us as trying to respond to it or act to it like Jesus does. Another thing, Jesus tells us to be involved with people instead of having a fortress mentality where we try to guard ourselves from it. In other words, the opposition's there. If we hide in the shelter, we're not facing it the way Jesus wants us to. We have to learn to face it. So, it takes courage to follow Jesus. I was thinking of the Cowardly Lion. Courage. Courage. And how do you get it? The Cowardly Lion found out it just came. It'll come as we follow and trust. We'd say, I don't have any courage, but God will give you courage. Courage isn't being fearless. It's looking right in the face of our fears and our discomfort, and by the power of the Holy Spirit saying, I will obey. I see the fears, but I'll obey, because God enables us. Today we're going to observe the Lord's Supper. Kind of fitting in a way. We observed the Lord's Supper the first Sunday I was here, because I moved here on February 29th. So, first Sunday was the first Sunday in March. And Lord's Supper. Now we're the first Sunday in October. And I think it's good we observe the Lord's Supper. We remember what Jesus did for us when he died and rose again. We remember that by faith in him, God's adopted us and made us his children. And we also remember we're connected to each other. That's such an important part in observing. We should look at the people and say, wow, they're eating the same bread. They're drinking the same cup. They have the same salvation. We really are God's children. If you've ever had trouble with your siblings, don't bring it into the church, okay? We are connected. And that's what gives the congregation power. We're told to examine ourselves before we participate to be sure we've trusted Christ. So let's take a few moments to talk to God about this as the deacons come forward to help serve. Stand up. Oh, I see you're all sitting down now. Okay. Aren't you thankful for how the building looks? You bet. Really served really well. And I enjoy seeing the work they get done. How about the deaconesses? If you are one or ever have been, would you please stand up? All right. Your service is so significant. And I think the one thing I'll always remember specifically is those Christmas packages you put together every year. Boy, that brings sunshine to a lot of people. And by the way, I know a lot of you help with that. And that's good. How about Christian Ed? If you're in it or have ever been in Christian Ed board, will you please stand up? I always tell people, our Christian Ed board is the most cutting edge of any part of the church. You can tell that by going to Sunday school. You can tell it by the series we have Sunday nights. And they've been that way right along. We're all cutting edge in our own way, but it's not as noticeable as it is with C. How about the worship team? If you've ever been in the worship team or are now, would you please stand? Thank you. Make a big difference. It's an important part of our worship every week. How about special music? If you've ever played your accordion here, or please stand. Whatever you've done for special music. Usually it's during the offering, but you know, all over. Thank you. That's part of your offering to God. We all benefit from it, but that's something you've given God. Well, at this time, we'll ask the ushers to come forward, and then we will present our tithes and offerings to the Lord. Please stand for the benediction. May God, who began a good work in you, and who has promised to continue it till perfection, may He give you every grace you need, every encouragement, every love. May your love for each other continue to grow, and may your love for Pastor Rod and his family, may that continue to grow. God bless you. I love you. Amen.